Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on WPTV.com. We're joined by Dr. Olayemi Osiyemi of O Medical Services, a long-time infectious disease specialist in Palm Beach County with his practice based in West Palm Beach. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And today we are talking about the most recent development that we're seeing as the battle against COVID-19 wears on, the FDA granting full approval to Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Osiyemi, tell us what we need to know about this latest development.
Yeah, I think it's great news that the vaccine has been officially approved. There are a lot of patients out there, people out there who are refusing to get the vaccine because they wanted the full approval. So hopefully this will encourage more people to get vaccinated. As we know, we have been increasing number of cases of COVID infection in the hospital, and most of those folks are not vaccinated. So if we can get more people vaccinated, that would be great.
And what are you seeing coming through your office? We're hearing about that surge in cases. At the end of July, we saw the CDC make a big decision to go back on its recommendation and advise that all people wear a mask indoors. And really, we've seen those numbers climb since that recommendation was issued. That surge still wearing heavy as we go on today.
Yeah, with the Delta strain, which is very contagious, almost about 8 times more contagious than what we saw last year. And this virus is also a little bit more infectious and cause more severe illness. So folks that we saw last year that will contract COVID and were not very sick, especially young folks, now they're coming in severely ill and very quickly. You see young people getting a stroke, young people getting they're decompensating so quickly that they have to go on the breathing machine. So this current strain really affects everyone equally, regardless of your age. And so that's important. So in the office, we've seen about 15, 20 people a day coming in for monoclonal antibodies. And then in the hospital, we have about 80 patients in the hospital. So, and we've seen a variety of cases from young individuals to pregnant women. We have a lot of pregnant women coming in who are healthy people getting COVID and getting so sick that some of them are ending up on the breathing machine. So if we can prevent someone from getting infected, that would be the best case scenario. Because when you think about it, most of the institutions are getting so filled up that after a while there may not even be room or bed available for patients. So if we can get people out, keep people out of the hospital, that would be the best scenario for us.
Right, and it's important to recognize that the hospital beds are needed for all types of emergencies. So in addition to the COVID-19 patients, there are other emergencies that the hospital will need room for. So what we can do is important in terms of protecting ourselves to avoid a hospital visit. And when it comes to, we're also learning the new development, the Pentagon making the vaccine mandatory for military now that Pfizer has been given full approval. So we are seeing this approval and more details coming out of that, especially with the federal government.
Yeah, I think you will see more and more institutions, businesses enforcing mandatory vaccination in order to keep their employees healthy. And so I won't be surprised if you hear more and more companies doing that.
And just to clarify, the Pfizer vaccine was approved for emergency use. This approval, how does that differentiate?
So initially, when these vaccines were given emergency authorization, there were enough data suggesting the efficacy and safety of this medication. But we needed to get the drug approved emergently so we can start using it, even though the FDA had not gone through the full approval process. And over the several months, with more data, and now the FDA has enough information to give a full approval. And you're going to see the same thing with Moderna coming shortly afterwards. And so I think there was a lot of hesitation from a lot of people when they hear the word emergency authorization, and they think, oh, it's not safe. That's why it's called. That's why it's given emergency authorization, and that's not entirely true. Hopefully, with this full approval, those folks who were a little reluctant will not come forward and get the vaccine. We know the vaccine does work. When we look at folks that we see in the office that are coming in for treatment, folks that we see in the hospital that are coming for treatment, the vast majority of them are unvaccinated. We've got about 95% or more that are unvaccinated that we're seeing. So clearly, your chances of getting very sick from the infection is less when you're vaccinated. And the other misconception out there is that if you get a vaccine, that means you shouldn't get infected. That's not the goal of the vaccine. The goal of the vaccine is to prevent you from getting severe illness and reduce your chance of ending up in the hospital. So you can still get infected, but you don't get very sick or you don't get sick at all. And that's the goal of the vaccine.
Mm-hmm. And I believe it was August 13th when the CDC recommended that those who were immunocompromised consider getting a third dose of the vaccine. What are you hearing in terms of questions about that third dose?
Yes, we are getting phone calls now about the booster vaccination. So folks who are immunocompromised tend not to respond as well to vaccine compared to people who are immunocompetent. So that's known for all vaccines. So this is no exception. So there are recent data showing that if you give these folks a third dose of the vaccine, you do get a good response. And so that's why the FDA and CDC recommend that those people who are immunocompromised should be getting that third dose, that third dose at this time. Now, the people who are immunocompetent at some point in time will be required to get that booster also, because we do know over time the level of protection can drop, and usually 8 months after the fact.
Wow, and we did see that first wave of the immunizations roll out in December, January for those who are immunocompromised, the elderly, as well as healthcare professionals. We are hitting that 8-month mark. So something to consider for those who are immunocompromised, the third dose of the vaccine. I also hear in the community some people saying they want to hold off on getting a third dose because Pfizer may be working on a booster shot that is specifically geared towards the Delta variant, tackling the Delta variant. What do we know about booster shots and where they stand in terms of an additional rollout?
Well, I think if anyone is in that group that's recommended to get a booster vaccine dose right now, I will not wait because the goal is to increase your antibody level to a point that it will be effective against the Delta strain. And those people who are immunocompromised should be getting that third dose, that third dose at this time. Now, the people is to increase your antibody level to a point that it will be effective against the Delta strain. And those people who are immunocompromised. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So, if you are waiting for a new version of the vaccine, there's a good chance you may get infected while you're waiting. So I wouldn't wait for anything. Right now, we know that the current vaccine, if you get it as a booster, is still effective against the Delta strain. So there's no point in waiting for anything. If you are in that immunocompromised group, it's time to go get your booster. Don't wait.
I also received a question from someone in the community who is expecting. They have, I believe, received both doses of the vaccine before they were expecting. Now they are expecting and wondering, what does that third dose or booster mean for them?
Well, she is not included in that group to get the booster vaccine at this point. So I will wait till after delivery and then see if anything has changed.
Okay, so at this point, until we hear further information, immunocompromised and the CDC does have a very detailed list as to who may qualify in that group, that population who's recommended for the third dose of the vaccine. What other questions are you hearing in your office or when you're out and about in the community? Because this is an opportunity to share and maybe put some of those myths to rest and maybe highlight some of the other important pieces of information we need to know at this time.
I think there's one thing I do here commonly, and that is someone who had COVID or who becomes infected with COVID will tell me, "Oh, I do know someone who had the vaccine and still got the COVID. Why should I get the vaccine?" Well, we do know the vaccine is 95% effective when it comes to the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. Having said that, over time, the level of protection can drop. So if it's been 8 months since you received your COVID vaccine, your level may have dropped to the point that you're now susceptible to getting the COVID infection. It's true that you can get an infection if it's been several months after, and you can be very sick. But that's why we're asking for booster. So if you had your vaccine and it's still within less than 6 months or so, you're unlikely to get a severe COVID infection. So having the vaccine gives you a better chance than not getting the vaccine. And the other thing people need to be aware of is you can get a COVID infection and be fine, or you can get this post-COVID syndrome, whereby you get this several months of fatigue, brain fog, chest pressure, trouble breathing, and that's the complication that I worry about, because there's not a lot to do except treat those symptoms, and that means you can't get back to your life. That can lead to depression and anxiety. So prevention is always better than dealing with those consequences. So the best way to prevent those long-term complication is to not get infected. So the vaccine is the only way. The one or two ways, the vaccine and the mask are the two ways we know that will decrease your chance of getting infection.
I think that's a really important piece of information there is it's sometimes those lingering side effects for those who have the case of COVID-19 and those without the vaccination and who may have a severe case of COVID-19 could potentially have those long-lasting impacts. And as you mentioned, not much to do when those side effects settle in. I'm also wondering, what else do we need to know when it comes to the next chapter? It seems as if we got to a place where we were more comfortable meeting in person and pulling our mask down. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak?
I think we do. I do see that. If we get enough people vaccinated, we're gonna get to the point again where we can go around, mingle with no mask. We just need to get enough people vaccinated. We cannot give this virus the opportunity to mutate. Dead virus do not mutate. So if we can get enough pressure on the virus by having more people vaccinated, then we have a chance to live a life like we used to in the past. And we will get there. We just need to convince people that this is the best way to get there.
And tell me about the services that you offer at your practice, Triple O Medical Services in West Palm Beach.
We actually offer a full scale when it comes to COVID, for example. We do antigen testing, which takes about 15 minutes. We do PCR testing, which takes about 45 minutes. If you do get, we do have Moderna vaccination. If you're negative, we do have monoclonal antibody if you do become infected, so we can treat you before you get to the hospital, so you don't get to the hospital. The treatment lasts for about 30 minutes of infusion, and we observe it for 15 minutes, one-time deal. And so we've been able to help a lot of people that come in. Again, ranging from testing you to preventing by giving you vaccination and treating you if you become infected.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Osiyemi. Always a pleasure to have you speak with us and share your insight, clear up any confusion out there as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we truly appreciate your time and always giving us a chance to hear what's happening, what the latest is, and what we need to know to stay safe. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.